75-year-old Fremont M. Jackson and his 60-year-old wife, Annie, were celebrating the start of Prohibition at Hotel Margaret in Brooklyn. Then, on April 27th, in 1922, they were found mysteriously dead. Investigators came to the conclusion that poison was involved in their death due to their oddly bluish faces and their red dot skin pattern. However, they didn't find a trace of poison in their apartment. 5 years earlier, due to a series of scandals and unsolved mysteries, the mayor of New York City, John Francis Hylan, hired Charles Norris at the office of the chief medical examiner in the city of New York. Norris himself hired several distinguished scientists and chemists, one of them including the talented and driven Alexander Gettler. Together, Norris and Gettler founded the city's first toxicology lab. Norris ordered one of the assistant medical examiners to do an autopsy. They found a hint of cyanide, but didn't know where it came from. The examiner sent the stomachs to Alexander Gettler so they could check it out for himself. If cyanide was the case, a bloody trail would have been found in their digestive system, but it wasn't there. So Gettler removed the muscle tissue from the stomach to see if it had absorbed the cyanide instead. To check this, he examined a mixture of distilled liquid and iron salts. Then closely added a drop after drop into the mixture, known as hydrochloric acid, until the stomach would show blue. However, there was no blue showing up. He ran 6 other tests and didn't get a hint of cyanide. Jackson's case was going nowhere. Gettler ran tests on the brain and found traces of alcohol. The family of the couple, however, denied Mr. and Mrs. Jackson would have drank alcohol due to their support of the prohibition. Gettler decided to run tests on all the bottles and containers in the apartment. He found a sleeping tonic that contained a legal amount of ethyl alcohol. However, this kind of alcohol wasn't lethal, so it couldn't have killed the couple. One detective was getting irritated and re-interviewed every one of the people in the hotel with harshness, and surprisingly, one old maid told him something new. She noticed that the basement floors and windows had been sealed with paper. This was common practice when buildings had been fumigated. Police had a real theory set in. Cyanide had seeped into the Jackson's bedroom and basement. Once the news was delivered to Gettler, he had to examine the lungs and confirm the theory. The district attorney convinced the family to let them dig up the couple in their burial site at their hometown in Springfield, New Jersey. When Gettler sliced the lungs open, he found exactly what cyanide leaves and a bloody trail which was blue, swollen blue. The hotel manager, Eli Dupree, and the fumigator, Albert Braddock, were later suspected of killing the couple for both forgetting about the fumigation and not responding to the phone calls. A trial was held over Gettler, and Gettler was completely humiliated in front of everybody by the 2 defense lawyers. The reason was because the defense said that Gettler's analysis and tests had errors in the way he couldn't fully prove the way cyanide broke down, but not being as transient as the defense says. After Gettler stayed in his lab and trying to learn the best about cyanide he could by writing professional papers and analyzing cyanide deaths and running tests. It took years for Gettler to finally discover the answer to the Jackson case. Gettler and Norris knew, or now understood their mistakes and knew not to make them again. This paved the way for the birth of forensic science. They started getting recognition for their works and made the front page of the newspapers. Forensic medicine is now an essential tool in the criminal investigations and court trials today all over the earth. They evaluated 100,000 bodies, and their work is still referenced today.